Hey there, welcome to Art with Viv. In this week's video, we are going to do some spooky pumpkins just in time for Halloween, and we're going to be using watercolor, colored pencil, and gouache. Let's just jump in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch out a spooky little tree here, and I want him to look gnarly and have roots that are sort of up on top of the ground. And then I'm going to do some pumpkins underneath him. And I want my pumpkin to be sort of an oblong, tall looking pumpkin. And as you see, I erase a lot, which is why I don't draw a lot on camera, because I am the queen of the eraser. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm getting the shape of his oblong face, and I'm just trying to figure out where I want to put his eyes, where I want to put his mouth. I don't think I'm going to give this one a nose. So I'm just kind of lining it up. It's a little crooked, but I want it to be a little off kilter. I don't want him to be perfect. I don't want him to be symmetrical. I want him to look spooky. And I'm going to draw his companion there. I just made sort of an oblong oval, sort of flattened out. And then I'm going to just add some branches to this tree. And I've got it sort of bent over. You know, I want it to look spooky. I want it to look gnarly. Is gnarly a word? Do people use that word? Well, we're using it. We got a gnarly, spooky tree. And then I'm just adding some more roots, because and another root just sort of poking out between the two pumpkins. And so far, so good. Let's give him some eyes. Ooh, I want him to have some evil eyes or some crazy eyes. We want crazy eyes for our pumpkin. They don't look too crazy yet, but wait till I put the wrinkles and the meanness to them. We're going to put some emotion behind these eyes. So now I'm just drawing some wrinkles, sort of like he's got his eyes scrunched up. You know, real scrunched up, like he's angry. We want the scrunched up look. Not the Grinched look. That's for Christmas. We doing scrunched. So I got them all scrunched up looking, and just erasing some of the lines here and there that I don't really need. And let's do a really, really big, scary, toothy grin. We want him to have a big, ugly grin with lots of teeth. And then, of course, we're going to draw sort of his mouth, around his mouth, so that it looks like it protrudes from the pumpkin. That's what I'm going for anyway. We'll see how it turns out. We're not even going to give him a nose. Let's just do a few little lines on him. Give him a chin there. Now, if you're not confident with your drawing skills, then maybe you want to join my patreon.com Art with Viv for $5 a month. For every Monday tutorial I put up, you will get the supply list, an outline drawing to trace, and a reference either photo or painting. Since this is from my imagination, you get a reference painting to look at, and as well as, you know, these videos. It starts at $3 a month. For $3 a month, you get coloring pages and all different kinds of worksheets. And of course, you get all the videos that you see, but you get some bonus content too. There is also free members. Free members, of course, they just get a few things per month, but I do appreciate all my members. So you might want to check into that. So now I am going to do some evil eyes on his little shorter, squattier pumpkin friend. I'm giving him a nose. Maybe. Yeah, I'm going to give him a nose, but I just had to erase that one. It did not look right, so we're just going to do another one there. And give him maybe a frown. Instead of a smile, we're going to give him a toothy frown, like he's just glaring at you. Oh, he's glaring at you. So I really like sketching things out, but as you see, I don't do it on camera because of the amount of erasing I do. And that's okay. That's just how I draw. That's my process. I erase a lot. I like to use tracing paper because tracing paper can hold up to erasing. So a lot of times I'll do my preliminary sketches on tracing paper because I can erase as much as I want to, and it doesn't really mess up the tracing paper. It's got that smooth vellum type finish. So that's why I do it. And then I just transfer it onto my good paper. And that way I don't erase so much on my good paper and tear up my watercolor paper, or, rough it up or make it peel up or anything like that. So I decided that maybe my tree here needs some sort of woodland spirit in it, some kind of little ghosty. So I made some eyes and a nose and a mouth, and I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that nose. So I'm going to erase it, make it maybe smaller. I may end up not doing a nose at all. I don't know, but for right now, we're just going to go with what we got. We're just going to go with it. This is a process. Trust the process. Trust your creative instincts. So now I've got a little ghosty face in there, a little spirit. We're going to call it a spirit. And I think we need a cobweb or a spider web. So I'm just doing a little dot right in the center here. And then I'm going to attach the web to the branches and to the pumpkins. Just with random lines. I'm not doing anything special. I'm not spacing them out evenly. I want it to look kind of random. I don't want it to be evenly spaced and look symmetrical, even though most spiders, they do a great job. Those are some little engineers there. Then I'm just going to add the webbing across, that attaches each of the radial lines, each of the radial webs there. So I'm just doing that randomly too, and I'm not making that symmetrical. I'm not making that even. I'm just, whatever my instincts, I'm just going with it. Whatever I think looks right. You can always erase, remember. But I do recommend doing your actual sketch on a different piece of paper so that you don't tear up your good paper. This is a sketchbook, and it's fairly thick. The paper's fairly thick, so it holds up to some of my erasing. So I'm just doing it straight into the sketchbook. As you know, I am still healing from having my right hip replaced, so I don't have access to all of my art supplies. My art studio is upstairs. I'm not supposed to be going upstairs, although I tried to go up there the other day, and then I got yelled at, and my husband ended up chasing me around with those discharge instructions explaining I shouldn't be going upstairs for at least 3 weeks. So now that I've got everything drawn, I'm just taking my kneaded eraser. I did it into a roll, and I just picked up some of that excess graphite, and then we're going to go in with our watercolor layer. Now I am going in with a nice cadmium yellow, a nice bright yellow into those eyes and into the nose and mouth, but you'll see later that I forgot to do one of them. Forgot to do the mouth and nose on the little pumpkin, but it's okay. We just come back and do it later. So I get those. I want it to look like he's glowing, or they are glowing from the inside. They're lit up, so I want a nice bright glowy yellow. Now I'm just going to mix up a little bit of a burnt sienna and a little bit of red together just to give it some brightness and some warmth. And I'm just going straight onto that tree, and then I'm just going to add in some darker browns where I want some shadows while it's still wet, using the wet on wet technique, and just getting that in there. I'm also adding a little bit of yellow to the mixture while it's still wet, and it blends really nicely with that wet on wet. And here we go. I've just sped it up a little bit, because all I'm doing is I am just adding in the yellows and the browns, and then a little bit of darker browns, just randomly trying to make it look like tree bark, going around the little face that I made. I'm not painting that in yet. I'm leaving that pretty open. I'm not putting a lot of paint in there. Coming in with my darker brown where I want some darker shadows. Then I'm coming in with some purple. I like that purple, and I'm just doing that in some of the shadows, and it also kind of plays against that yellow that I have in there, so it looks really nice. If you're liking this content, please don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up. Now I am just going ahead and putting in some of the orange onto the pumpkins, and it's just a regular orange. It's not a fancy orange. I think the name of it is orange. It's just orange paint. And I'm doing the top part of the little shorter pumpkin, my little squatty body. Then I'm adding in some of that yellow while it's still wet, letting those blend together. And right about here, I start noticing that I didn't paint the yellow in the nose and the mouth, and I'm just going to ignore it for right now. Then I'm going with a sort of a burnt orange or a deeper orange right here at the bottom, underneath his mouth, and letting that blend up into the regular orange. That's just my shadow color. I'm just going with a little bit of a burnt orange. And I think that is a Daniel Smith burnt orange, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is a Daniel Smith, yeah. So I'm adding that in there. Adding a little bit more of the regular orange right above it so they kind of blend together. And that looks, I like that. I like the way that it looks. I like the gradation from the lighter orange down to that deeper burnt orange. So we're going to go ahead and start on the big pumpkin doing the same thing, although I've got a little bit of yellow mixed with the orange, so it's more of a yellow orange. To start at the top, I want him lighter at the top, darker at the bottom. I'm going to add some of my regular orange in there. Again, while it's still wet, just let those colors blend together. I'm leaving a little bit of that initial yellow kind of peeking through here and there. I'm going to go back with the darker orange right above his mouth, on the top part of his mouth. And I am using a silver black velvet brush, round brush. It's a size 8, I believe, pointed round. It's a little more expensive than, say, the Creative Mark Mimic Faux Squirrel Mimic brushes, and a little bit more expensive than the Royal Langnickel. But I do love this brush. I use it a lot, but it is a little bit more pricey. It's not crazy pricey. Now I'm finally coming back in when that pumpkin is dry and putting in that yellow where I forgot it before. I can't remember. I just, sometimes I skip stuff. I'll just go with the flow. Now I added a little bit of brown, a little bit of purple into that yellow, and I'm doing the stem of each pumpkin with it sort of a purpley brown yellow, just a yellowy with some purple and brown mixed to it. And then I'm just going to add some of the burnt sienna in there while it's still wet, just randomly where I think some, I don't know, where I think some shadows might be. And then we're going to get out the colored pencils, and I'm using Color Erase. These are erasable color pencils. I just got them, so this is my first time trying them out. I did swatch them, but I haven't tried them out. I'm taking sort of a terracotta red, or yeah, I think that's sort of a terracotta color, and I'm just coloring in where I want some shadows, and then along those lines, you know, the pumpkin sections, how they have the little sections. Then I want to take some purple and do the same thing. I really like using purple and orange. I like using purple for an orange shadow. I mean, for the shadows of something that is an orange color. I just like that. So I'm going to go in there with that purple and add some more shadow marks here and there, darkening that up really well. And I just want you to notice how the darker I get around that mouth, the more the yellow in the mouth is glowing. Anytime you put a really dark color next to a really bright light color, it makes it glow. So they really are good contrast complements to each other. So that's all I'm doing with my purple. I'm just adding where I want some shadows in there. And then I'm coming back with a regular orange and coming in and coloring over top of that purple, sort of blending it in. It also gives a little bit more warmth and a little bit more depth to the pumpkin than the watercolor does. I don't know what made me decide I was going to do a mixed media. I think because I got these not markers, but these Color Erase pencils, and they're brand new to me. So I just wanted an excuse to use them. So I'm just sort of experimenting and trying them out. And I'm going to be honest, I did not love the way this mixed media piece came out, but I still thought it was worth showing to you because there's a lot of little techniques and little tricks and tips I can give you along the way to help. The one thing I don't like about these Color Erase, these erasable colored pencils, is when I they're not as smooth when I lay them down. They are very easy to erase, but they're not as smooth as, say, the regular Prismacolor wax-based pencils are. And they don't blend as easily or as well, it feels like. They just have a different feel, but I do like them. I do like them for the sketching, and I'm pretty happy with the way that they worked for this multimedia piece. But, you know, I'm going to practice a little bit more with them. This is my first time using them. I want to really push the limits and see what they can do. Now I'm adding just a regular red into some of those shadow areas where I put the purple in the terracotta color, and then I'm just going over it with some red, some darker red. If you ever notice when you have your pumpkin out on the porch and he's lit from within, there will be some red. He'll have some areas that look red, and that's just how the light is sort of going across the surface from the inside of the pumpkin. If you hold your own hand up to a strong light source, you'll see some pinks coming out, and that's sort of the same thing. So now I'm just darkening up those shadows with my purple, and I think he's looking pretty good. Yep, he's a jolly little pumpkin. I'm taking my white and just sort of blending over it just to lighten up some of those areas. That's another thing. This white doesn't do as good of a job as my regular non-erasable colored pencils. It doesn't show up as well, but I think it's doing what I need it to do right here. I just wish it was a little stronger. You know, I wish the white was a little more opaque, a little stronger. But hey, we are rocking and rolling, and I'm not going to complain. I'm just trying to point out the things that I notice so that if you do try to use these kinds of pencils, that you'll already be ready for it. You'll kind of notice it, and you can adjust your style or your technique to what I found and see if it works better for you. I mean, that's the whole point of experimentation, is to figure out how things work, try different things. If it works, hey, that's a bonus. If it doesn't work, well, you know, you learned something. You learned what doesn't work, so it's no big deal. I want this shadow to be a little darker because, of course, the pumpkin in front is casting a shadow onto the little guy there. So right along that edge, I wanted it to be a little bit darker. Now I'm coming back over here to the big guy, and I am adding my purple. I did not add any terracotta to this side. His chin actually looks a little light to me. I don't think I put enough of the darker burnt orange watercolor on there. I should have probably put another layer on there before I started with the colored pencil, but we're just going to make it up with colored pencil, the value. I wanted the value to be a little bit darker, and I probably should have added a little bit more of the watercolor, but hey, we are sketching. We are practicing. We're not worrying about it. We're just going to go on with what we got and make it work. So I'm getting that purple layer in there. That's going to be my shadow. And you'll notice along the edges I'm making the purple a lot darker and then sort of lightening it up, you know, with a little less pressure up toward his chin, up toward at the bottom of his mouth. I want that to be sort of gradated from darker to a little bit lighter. Now I'm going to put this red in here. You could use red, you could use terracotta. If you have a burnt orange or a deep orange pencil, I don't have one. This is, I think, just a 24 set, so I don't have a lot of colors. I just got 24 of them. So I'm just using what I have in this set and not worrying about it. So I am using red over that purple, but I would love to have a burnt orange. So now I'm coming in with my orange. And again, darkening up the shadows, going right over that purple. Just trying to sort of separate like his eyes, make them look like they're bulging out a little bit. And the way that I'm doing that is I'm making the area around them darker and keeping the actual raised part lighter, because of course lighter things come forward, darker recedes to the background and goes to the background. So that's the principle I'm thinking of as I'm doing this, and just getting those areas around the eyes really dark so those eyes sort of stick out a little bit. I like the way he's coming along. I think he's really cute. He's a cute little thing, even if he is got crazy eyes. But you do notice I am leaving a little bit of the paler yellow shining through so that he has some highlights, some mid-tones, and some dark tones. You know, I try to get all the tones in there. And the more nuanced you can get your tones, the more realistic it looks. I'm not really going for realistic on this. I'm just going for more illustrative. So I'm not really worrying about having 10 different tonal values in my pumpkin. We're just going with at least 3, 4, maybe 5. I'm going from light to dark in this just a few tones. So I think he's looking pretty good now. I'm going to take some greens and just put some shadows on his teeth. You know how there is the pumpkin wall has a thickness to it, and when you look inside the pumpkin, you can see that pumpkin wall in some of the cuts. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just putting some green in there for that pumpkin wall that you can see. And then I'm going over it with a little bit of red to darken it up, because red and green are complementary colors and they make good shadow colors for each other. So I'm wanting that to look more like a shadow. I don't want it to be a bright green that just pops out at you. So I'm just knocking it back with a little bit of that red. I'll link these erasable colored pencils in the description below in case you're interested. You can try them out for yourselves. Now this is watercolor paper that I'm working on, so there's a lot of tooth to it, and that may be part of the reason why it's not going on as smoothly, is because it might have a little extra tooth to it. So I just took some green pencil and I did some lines through those vines. Oh, lines through the vines. Look at me, I'm all rhyming. Now I'm taking some brown and going around the little curly cues. And that just gives it some texture. I like it, and it darkens it up. I darkened up some areas. I'm just going to take this darker brown again and just do line work, almost like when we did our pen and ink raven, how you can darken things up with the curvy lines. I call them contour lines. Curvy lines that are parallel to each other, and then the closer you put them together, the darker that area will look. The further you put them apart, the lighter the area. Same principle, I'm just using a colored pencil. And I'm just darkening in this edge right here because of course this pumpkin is casting a little bit of a shadow onto our gnarly tree. And he's looking pretty good. I still haven't done a lot with the face. So now we're going to skip over to gouache, our third medium. We got 3 mediums going on. And I'm going to do a black background. So I'm just using solid black. You could mix it with a little bit of blue if you wanted it to be a little bluer. I'm just doing solid flat black straight out of the tube for this one. I don't usually use it straight out of the tube, but for this one, yeah, I think I'm going to. And I just did a shape. I'm not going to do the whole entire background in black. I'm just giving it a pleasing shape, or at least it's pleasing to me, around the tree. And it just sort of unifies, groups everything together, and gives them a little vignette. I like that little vignette look. So that's what we're going for. And I have switched brushes. I've started with a flat brush for the larger areas, and now that I'm getting into the tighter areas and I need a smaller brush, I've switched over to my golden maple detail brushes. I also love those for gouache. So that is what I have switched over to, so I can get in these little nooks and crannies around the branches. And I've got it to like a creamy consistency. It's like heavy cream, really thick cream is what the consistency of my gouache is, so that I can get it to go on smoothly and evenly. And I think that black really makes those pumpkins pop out, just pop out. And it also makes the tree pop out as well. But something about black and orange, you know, that's a traditional Halloween color. Black, orange, purple, green. Those colors tend to be really Halloweeny to me. Halloweeny, is Halloweeny a word? We gonna go with it. It's Halloweeny. So now let's turn it back up. We're going to let that dry completely. Now that it's dry, I'm going to take some of this warmer blue gouache I got going on in here. And I've mixed it with a little bit of red. No, I mixed it with white to lighten it up some. And I'm going to do sort of a circular moon type deal here. And I've got a little bit of the black with some white and the blue mix, so it's sort of a bluey gray. And I'm just trying to do, I'm thinking about a moon, a glowing moon, but our moon is going to be blue, not yellow, because that's what I want. You can make your moon whatever color you want. I just chose blue. And it's not even like a real moon. It's just the indication of a moon. I just want you to have the feeling that there's a moon up there or something shining, and maybe it's a star, maybe it's Jupiter, maybe it could be Jupiter, we don't know. This is one of those spooky Halloween mysteries. Either way, it's glowing up there in the sky, and we're going to let it dry once we get all these little rings around it. And it dried, it just sunk right into that black. So I'm coming back with some more blue because I'm not a quitter. We're going to put some more blue in there and try this again. So I am putting a little bit more blue with some white mixed into it. I'm making it a little rounder. That other one was a little squashed anyway, so no love lost. I didn't love that Jupiter, star, moon, whatever we're going to call it, our glowy thing in the sky. Ooh, it could be an alien. It could be an alien ship coming to beam up our pumpkins. I don't know. I mean, there's so many stories we could make from this one blue blob on our paper. That's what I love about art. It just sparks your imagination. And the next thing you know, you have aliens abducting your pumpkins. You have Jupiter coming too close to the Earth. I don't know. It could be anything. Anyway, we're going back and we're putting in some more of the gray. I want them to be a little bit darker or brighter or show up more is really the thing I'm trying to get to. So I'm being really careful not to reactivate that black. I think the problem with the first layer was I was dabbing it too much with my brush and I reactivated the black, which is of course both a blessing and a curse with gouache. You can reactivate the colors with water, and I think that's why it just sort of sunk into the black. So this time I'm being very careful, using a really light touch and a little bit heavier paint so that it won't disappear into the background like it did on our first layer. But I wanted to leave that in so that you could see that, you know, stuff happens and you just go back over it. It's a painting. We're not curing world hunger here. We're just making up stories about our little painting. So now I'm getting pretty satisfied with him. We'll have to let him dry. Now once he's dry, he did not melt into the background. I'm going to take some bright yellow gouache, add some highlights here and there to my pumpkin, around his eyes, make those come out a little bit more, make them look a little bit more bulgy. Is bulgy a word? I just make up words. Just go with it. Bulgy works, okay? Bulgy works. And then I'm just adding a little bit of highlight across his top of his mouth, just here and there. And I'm just doing random brush strokes. I'm not doing any kind of particular shapes, just some random brush strokes. I want him to look a little random, a little messy. We're not getting our panties in a wad about this. We're just slapping on the color. And I am very pleased with the way that the gouache goes right over this erasable colored pencil. I was a little skeptical. I've seen other artists do it, but I'd never done it myself. And I'm thinking, well, is the gouache going to stick to that colored pencil? And by doggone it, it did. And the same with our little squatty body friend over here. I'm going to give him some little highlights. He is just mad. I don't know what he's mad about. Probably because the aliens are coming to get him. And he's not happy. He's mad. The other one, he looks a little bit like he could get into some mischief. But this little squatty body guy, he looks like he's fixing to get into some trouble. I'm going to add some lowlights, highlights, but a little bit darker. I'm not making them as bright as I did the ones at the top because, of course, it's reflected light into the shadow. So you want it to be a little lighter, but you don't want it to be way bright. So we're just doing softer, a little bit darker highlights in that reflected area in the shadow. And I'm going to do some brighter lights across his little chin here, on his lips. I like him. They're doing. I like the way they're coming out. Really do. I mean, this was just a sketch. I was just like, oh, let's just do something crazy, something spooky. I want to do some pumpkins. Everybody does pumpkins, so I'm going to do some pumpkins. Now I am coming up here to his little face. I'm going to add a little bit of purple gouache, but I've got it watered really wet and watery down. And I put that purple gouache in his mouth. As you see, I did away with the nose. I told you I probably wasn't going to do that nose. That nose just didn't go. I'm adding a little bit of blue to where the eyes would be, a little shadow underneath in his mouth, a shadow above his forehead, down his chin a little bit. I don't want him to look, I want him to look like wood, and I want him to look scary. So I don't want him to look too much like a human or have too many human aspects. And then I'm adding a few of those purple streaks to the branches just here and there. And now we are going to our last medium, and I didn't even name it, but it's just a white gel pen, and we're just going to color in the web. As you see, I went back, I don't know if you can see on camera, but I went back with my just regular pencil, my graphite pencil, and drew the web again over that paint so that I would have a guide to go. And then I am just using my gel pen, my white gel pen, to draw that spider web back in. It's not exactly the way we had it at the beginning, but it's okay. I'm just trying to make it not asymmetrical. I'm not making those webs, those little web strings exactly apart, the same distance apart. I'm just leaving it a little random here and there. And then I'm just going to add those inner webs, those connecting webs. And I'm doing those randomly as well. I'm not making those symmetrical. Some of them I'm making it like two little strings connected to each other like so, and then just going around, and that is blocking out. That's their protection from the aliens. This web is holding, that's what we're going to say. We're going to say this web is their only protection from the aliens coming to abduct them. So we've got to make this web strong. It is holding back. It is a magic web, and it is holding back that force field that's trying to suck the pumpkins up. So these little pumpkins are being protected by this wood spirit with a magic web. That's our story, and I'm sticking to it. Be careful not to run your hand through your white gel pen, because if you do, you're going to get it smeared, so be careful of that. If you don't have a white gel pen, just use white gouache with a really small fine brush, and you can do the same, the same kind of web. Connect it to your pumpkins so they're all connected together. I think he's starting to look good. Add a little white highlights in the eyes just for fun, and in the little wood spirit's eyes, and there you go. We have a cute multi-medium pumpkin. So subscribe if you enjoyed this. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and thank you for watching, and a shout out to all my patrons. I appreciate you. Without you, I couldn't make this channel keep going. Thanks a lot, guys.